This is a story about when we found a tree with a human face inside, part 4. Okay, finally found time to write more. So, when we were assembling to leave, the foreman made some last-ditch efforts to keep us working. We weren't listening. The sooner we got started, the sooner we'd be home and away from dead bodies and creepy trees. Nothing on God's green earth would keep us there another day, I thought. The night had been a long one. I figured, after all we'd been through, I'd pass out when I got in bed. Instead, every sound was amplified. I heard snapping twigs, possible footsteps, and various animal sounds. I knew I was psyching myself out. I was nearly drifting off when I heard someone, in a spot-on Donald Duck impression, say, "Come out and play." I jumped up, the shock jolting my body rigid, my eyes watering with fear. Donald Duck shouldn't be scary. But the context was so completely wrong. Maybe it was a dream, I thought. My body wasn't convinced. I still couldn't will myself to move. It took a while before I could lay my head back on my pillow and stare into the dark above me. I was wide awake when I heard it this time, the same Donald Duck voice, so close, it was like he was crouching by the corner of my front door. "I woulda hurt you bad." I spent the rest of the night imagining what would have happened if I'd opened the door or even gone to the window, and cataloging every potential weapon in the room. I didn't move a muscle until the gray light of day hit. Then I got up stiff and tired. Terrible state for a long hike. "Did anyone else hear anything strange last night?" I asked while we waited for Vibber. There was an awkward silence followed by Doc saying, "I thought I heard music." I was nearly asleep and I was sure I could hear Johnny Cash. "What song?" I asked. "I Bleed Alone." "Never heard it," I said. Grits was shaking his head. "Neither had I," Doc said. That renewed the sense of doom this place was giving me now. I decided to keep quiet about what I heard. What was taking Vibber so long, I wondered. He was the only one missing. "I guess we should go check on him," I said. "I saw him walking around in his cabin," Mahone said. "Maybe he's on the can. You know old constipated Pete, eh?" Mahone needed to learn how to pick his time for humor, because no one was in the mood. "Who's that?" "Another guy the first haven't mentioned yet," Brian once said. "We have two Brians, both I never really talked to. I had a bad experience with a Brian once. Incidentally, that's it. You now know all of the camp workers." "Who is that?" he asked again. We all looked to where he pointed. Someone was standing at the distant edge of the camp watching the compound. I remember how the sun gleamed off his eyes for just a moment, like a flash. I had that feeling of being hunted again. He was too far to distinguish his face. We just saw the short-sleeve red shirt and khaki shorts. We'd never wear khaki shorts out here. They're so 2 years ago. Also, the bugs'd eat us alive. We stepped outside to get a better look at this person. The foreman was saying, "In 17 years here, nobody's ever been to the camp who I didn't truck in." But none of us recognized this asshole. "It could be Mickelson or Taylor," he said, waving a hand. The person didn't wave back. No movement at all. "Why would he just stand over there like that?" Mahone asked. "It's spooky." "What if it's Malik's?" Doc said. "For heaven's sake," Grits said and started marching toward the figure at a brisk pace. I followed behind him. The others watched. Once we'd have the distance between us and him, it was clear it was neither Taylor nor Mickelson nor Alex. It was just some young guy. His hair was black and slicked close to his scalp and he had thick, black-framed glasses. He certainly didn't belong at our camp. We didn't have an accounts receivable department. The closer we got, the more details came into focus. A trickle of blood from his left nostril. The vacancy in his stare. Sores around his mouth. "Grits," I said. "Stop." He looked back at me like I'd just hit him. "What is it?" "Look at that guy. This doesn't make sense. How'd he even get back here?" He looked to the man, who stayed still, his stare no more or less dead than before. "So we talk to him and find out," Grits said. Practical as ever. I didn't think it was a good idea. I tried to say so, but he was already walking again. When we were 20 feet or so away, Grits called out to the man. He smirked and ran into the woods with surprising agility. Even Grits looked a little spooked now. He paused for a moment, considering pursuit. "Fuck it," he said and turned back. Where the guy had been standing was a photograph. Grits didn't even want to look at it. I did. Took in every detail. It was a black and white photo of a woman, in profile, with a long face and a pearl necklace. On the back, someone wrote in ballpoint, "You're in great pearl." Jesus. A pile of fingernails was also on the ground beside the photo. "Guess he was nervous," I joked. Grits didn't acknowledge it. We both knew there were way too many to have come from one person. Grits turned to face me so suddenly I thought he was gonna take a swing. I probably had it coming for something. "Not a word of this to the others," he said. "I've been thinking. Incredible. Dennis talks when he drinks. Takes a lot of drink, but he does. A few times he told me stories about the owners of this place. You know he's never met them. Not once. All radio and mail. That's it. Okay. One time when he's not getting the response he wants, he decides he's going to the return address on the mail to talk to them in person. Takes him to a little shithole in South Ontario called Pembroke. He gets to the address, or where he thinks it must be. Only thing there is an old warehouse. Windows all busted out, doors boarded up, and there's graffiti over one side that says, simply, "Bad place." He thought it was funny at first and was going to check it out, but he gets a feeling. Feels like he should stay away. The place smells like an electrical fire. The hair on his neck stands up. He backs away. As he's leaving, he thinks he hears a groan from inside. A pack of wild dogs come running and go way around the building. He decides the graffiti has it right and gets out of there. He asks around and the locals tell him nobody's used that building for as long as they can remember. Damn thing is left over from the tail end of the fur trade. He asks them if it's haunted. A joke, I guess. They tell him no ghost would be dumb enough to set foot there. One kid follows him and says he remembers some men in suits going into the place. He thought they came from the university, but he didn't know. He didn't see them leave. But he never saw them again. Doesn't end there. Dennis goes to the post office to see if they can help. The post office tells him to look at the postmark. The letter was mailed 60 years ago. It's either a real good forgery, or he got old mail. It happens, they tell him. He looks over all the mail he's got from them, 4 or 5 pieces. All of it is postmarked from decades ago. But it's in order. If someone's forging it, they're goddamn committed. That's the only possibility, though. And that's how they still come. Weird, I say. By radio, they tell him to do strange things. He wouldn't tell me more than that. I didn't want to hear more. I come here to do a job, you know. It just got me thinking. Who are these owners? Are they dicking with us? You'd know, Greaves. You like to dick with people. It's gone far beyond dicking, wouldn't you say? I guess so. What I wonder, if these people are so strange and out of touch, where does this lumber go? Are they really distributing and selling it? What are we really doing here, Grits? Earning our keep, he said and took off back to the others. I was getting too philosophical for old Grits. Is it not we who are the lumber? I called spitefully after him. Where we were talking was not far from Mickelson's cabin. As Grits walked away, I noticed movement through Mickelson's window, a flitter of shadows that seemed to retreat when I looked. Hey, I shouted, I think Vibber's in Mickelson's cabin. Grits paused but kept going. So I went myself. I knocked first. When there was no answer, I let myself in. Hello, I called. No answer. Petty. The cabin smelled strange, like an electrical fire, as it happens. I still remember how much that freaked me out, and how I couldn't hear anything from outside when I stepped in. Like I was on another planet. Next step I took, I almost stepped on it, one of Mickelson's wooden hands on the floor. As my eyes adjusted, I realized they were scattered everywhere. On the table, counter, window sill. Hands everywhere. Something had been scratched into the floor under one. I brushed it aside. Why life? Someone had scratched. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement again. When I looked, all I saw was a hand. It was gripping a juice box. Mickelson never carved them in gripping poses, as far as I knew. And we didn't have juice boxes either. As I watched, juice started bubbling from the straw over the hand. I backed out, trampling on a hand that felt weird and flesh under my feet, and slammed the door behind me. When I got out, everyone was gone. I went into the compound looking for them. They weren't there. Surely they didn't leave without me. Then I saw the Bryans hanging outside Vibber's cabin. Vibber's dead, Mahone said when I got there. Doc says he's been dead all night. He gripped my shoulders. Who did I see in there, Greaves? I dunno, buddy, I said, pushing past him. Firewood had been arranged in a circle around Vibber's body, ritual-like. He'd been gutted and a chunk of firewood been placed in the cavity. Stars were carved around his eyes. It made him look surprised. I remember thinking that. Poor bastard. Doc was holding up a pearl when I got in. I turned aside to vomit, but nothing came up, and that made me mad and dizzy. What the fuck is this? I shouted. Doc pointed to some text written over the walls in blood, and read it, "Bad place." I punched the foreman hard in the face. I enjoyed that sucker punch.
Subscribe and please like. Thanks for tuning in and listening.